Hello again everybody. Today Sylvie and I are in the Essex village of Great Bardfield, and we're going to walk several miles across country to the more beautiful village of Finchingfield. And it's a beautiful day. Let's get going. Come on then, Syl. The village of Great Bardfield is situated about 9 miles northwest of Braintree and approximately 12 miles southeast of the town of Saffron Walden. A house in the village, dating to the 16th century, was once owned by a man named William Bendlows, who was Sergeant-at-Arms to Elizabeth I, and she was reputed to have sought refuge here during the time when she was persecuted by her sister, Mary Tudor. During the 1950s, the village became home to several noted artists, and it eventually became known as the Artists' Village. Sylvie and I are starting our walk from the windmill, situated on the northeast edge of the village on Mill Road, and taking the footpath around the northern edge of the village. A few hundred yards further north brings us onto a tree-lined trackway running parallel to the River Pant. The trackway eventually brings us to the old Bardfield watermill, which is now a private house. The path here takes us over a bridge across the River Pant and onwards into a northerly direction. After about 3/4 of a mile, we come to a rather pretty country residence known as Norman's. It's here that the footpath goes in two different directions, one heading east and the other continues north towards Finchingfield, but Sylvia and I are taking the east path. This path takes us up a hill where we eventually come to a large flat plateau, and from here you can actually look down and see the village of Finchingfield in the valley to the north. Halfway across this field you come to a point where two paths actually cross. We take a left turn, head north towards the village of Finchingfield. The path eventually brings us out onto a little country lane called Mill Road. This road actually leads all the way back to the windmill where we started. Well, after a few hundred yards, we eventually come to the outskirts of the village of Finchingfield. Mill Road eventually becomes Vicarage Road, and this takes us onto the main road leading into the village. As we pass the church on the left, we come to one of the oldest and most picturesque buildings in the village, and this is the old medieval guild hall, which was built around 500 years ago. Finchingfield is one of the most attractive and popular villages in Essex, and it attracts many thousands of sightseers and ramblers throughout the year. Unfortunately, it also attracts hundreds of motorcycle enthusiasts who converge on the village every Sunday, much to the annoyance of many of the village residents, because of the noise, I hasten to add. Well, Sylvie and I have spent about an hour walking round the village, and now it's time to start heading back to Great Bardfield. We're taking a different route back, and it's one that starts close to the village centre, and it's a footpath that runs beside the River Pant. Initially this didn't seem like a wise choice, as the path is very narrow and it's overgrown in places. Eventually the path opens out and the going gets a little bit easier. This route eventually brings us back to the country residence known as Normans, where we were earlier. We're going to follow the same path back for part of the way, but then we're going to branch off until we reach the B1057, which takes us back towards Great Bardfield. Well, the entire walk has taken about 3.5 hours and it's covered about 5.5 miles. Oh, well, that's been an enjoyable walk. It took about 3 hours. Anyway, we're back in Great Bardfield now, so time for a refreshing beer. See you next time.
Cheers.
You are unreal, you are.
You did buy it for me, didn't you?
Yeah, of course I did, yeah.